Welcome to Two Fat Guys and an Album. Each week we take a deep dive into a classic album. We will discuss what made this music so relevant at the time and if that still holds true. We will look at some contemporary reviews and give our thoughts on those. We will also discuss what's happening in music today, some of the new music that's coming out, what we're listening to, and what we are looking forward to. And then each week we wrap up with a hidden gem, some forgotten piece or overlooked piece of music that's worth giving a spin. I am Mike Blackburn, your host and narrator. With me, as always, is the maestro of music, the siren of sound, the doctor of the diminished chord, Brek Hufnus.
Salutations.
Welcome to episode 3, man.
Have we considered my walk-up music yet?
The waddle up?
Whatever.
Yeah, we do not have waddle up music, no.
Okay.
Before we dive into the album today, the album is Supertramp'S Breakfast in America. I thought we'd kind of look back on something we talked about last episode. We got into a pretty deep discussion about MTV. The impact of MTV and really my disappointment of what happened to that remarkable music station that sort of has become just a shadow of itself. And I think my take here, or summing it all up, which I may not have been perfectly clear about, is that they're still pandering to the wrong demographic. They should be they should be pitching the channel to
You still want to see Madonna videos. Not the new Madonna videos. the Like a Virgin videos.
Martha Quinn could still be on the as the VJ, and I would still watch.
Right. There were other VJs. Would you watch them as well?
Well, the living one, sure. I would. No, but I think there's music. I think there's music we listen to. There's they could have like an oldies. They could have like a classical, segment. They could do new music.
So if you were programming MTV today,
yeah,
and the videos exist, right?
Sure.
The bands are still making videos. You can go on YouTube and see the videos. So if you were programming MTV today, hit me with a couple. What would be leading it off? I'm having my morning coffee. I flip on MTV. It gives me the weather, gives me the traffic, and then I hear
Money for Nothing.
So not new music.
Well, you could do that. We've talked about bands that we like. There's great indie music going on.
Right.
There's
Well, that's
there's
what I'm
smaller
saying.
bands.
Would you program it as newer music, or would it be the music of the 80s and 90s still spinning today?
You could do that.
Uh-huh.
You could have, a classic section. You could do documentaries on different bands.
Kind of like this.
Yeah, you could do,
Are you trying to get us on MTV? Is this what the angle that we're
trying?
working?
Apparently I'm trying to take over MTV.
Okay.
So the only point I was going to make today is that we also happen to be the demographic right now with disposable income. It would be wise to pander to
You
our
want
age
to be
group.
pandered to.
I do.
You are offering to spend money on
I
adult products in order to be able to watch MTV.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
I know I miss MTV. Friday Night Videos also was big back in the day. It's a big Friday Night Video fan.
All right. Well, that.
Not all of us had MTV in our house 24 hours a day. Some of us could only watch videos on Friday nights between 10 and 11 o'clock.
I believe we had MTV since its inception, but I'm pretty sure we had a cheater box.
Okay.
we didn't have an actual cable
I'm not
box.
sure the statute of limitations has run out on that yet, so be careful where you're going.
I want to say the service that I had was on TV,
Yes.
and that we had an illegal on TV box.
By we, you mean you.
No, I would have been 13 years old. I didn't make one. I didn't. My father brought it home.
Okay.
And I believe the statute of limitation has run out on him.
They won't be putting him in jail,
No.
unfortunately.
No. All right. Before we dive into the album, I'd one more kind of interesting topic that.
Are we going to revisit some of your blasphemous Moondance statements? When do we get to? Is it too soon for that? Did you want to get something else first?
I was nothing but complimentary about.
Blasphemous is the word we're looking for. So, if I'm not interrupting,
You are, but go on.
we are. I am.
Do you want to set it?
No,
Do you
no.
want to set it up a little bit for
Well-
people who didn't see?
Well, yeah, that's a good idea. Or you might want to go back and watch the episode 2 because it's podcast magic. But maybe I'm misquoting you. Maybe I misheard you. Maybe I'm mischaracterizing what you were thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So, just what I heard was Moondance is elevator music.
I never said it was elevator music. The point I was trying to
For
make.
those of you listening, I just made a face.
The point I was trying to make about this album in the pantheon of Van Morrison music is this is probably not his deepest. It is probably not reflective of his the spirituality that you get in a lot of his other albums and songs. And it's just sort of, if there's a middle of the road sort of vanilla version of Van Morrison, it is, it was that album. And I'm very, very sorry that you've had to live with this for the past week, driving around.
I think you should apologize to Van Morrison. I will be fine.
I don't believe Van Morrison has ever apologized to anybody. I'm not going to.
Okay. Well, I truly respect your opinion and all opinions because I'm not here to dictate because I think it's great, you must think it's great. But I do think it's a great album, and that's fair enough. And
Yeah.
But just let's not throw around the elevator music word so lightly.
Those were your words. If you go back and listen to the episode. You said elevator music. I did not. I said it was cocktail party music. Totally different. Totally different.
Okay.
All right. So before we dive into Breakfast in America, I've been thinking a lot about the fact that Supertramp, kind of as the band that we think of, didn't exist that long. So there's kind of like two main voices in Supertramp.
Yes.
Right. And if you remove one of those voices, is it still Supertramp? So you get a lot of like bands that lose members or somebody moves on.
So this is a Ship of Theseus discussion. It's so okay. Well, it's a
Hippopotamus?
it's a don't. I thought you had a philosophy degree.
Minor. It's just a minor.
Just a minor.
Yeah.
So this thought has been proposed by greater minds than you or I, and the idea is that if a boat ship, is rebuilt, and you take parts out of the ship and put new parts onto the ship, and let's say you've over time, over the course of 20 years or 30 years or whatever, you've actually replaced every part of the ship. is it still the original ship? Is that ship still the same? That is the ship of Theseus. So it's you have, struck on perhaps one of the great thought experiments in human history in your own little way.
I'm just a narrator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the ship of so am I right? Am I that's kind of what you're talking about. So if the parts are interchanged, then is it still Supertramp?
So well, if a key.
So we're talking about Roger Hodgson and Rick Davies, yeah. There's the two primary. Although the saxophone player is a very significant sound in that band, and is still actually one of the active members.
But when Roger Hodgson left,
yeah,
in 1983, I believe,
right,
he took with him a very distinct sound.
Yes,
and a lot of the songwriting.
Yes,
right. So, is
essentially half the group.
Yeah. So is that so super? Like I would argue, Pink Floyd stopped being Pink Floyd the minute Roger Waters left.
Right, and you're talking about two. We're not just talking about the bass player quitting the band, although Roger Waters was the bass player. Well, I know you. Yeah. I know also. Like I'm just gonna preemptively
insult.
Defend myself. But yeah, and I don't know how. So when Pink Floyd split up, David Gilmour actually retained the name Pink Floyd, and Roger Waters toured as Roger Waters, and I think Supertramp is still touring under the name of Supertramp.
So Pink Floyd is like the greatest Pink Floyd cover band ever. Well, but I don't think they're.
So
Pink
I've
Floyd.
seen both. I've seen the Dave Gilmour Pink Floyd, and I've seen Roger Waters as a solo act doing Pink Floyd music.
We saw the Wall.
We saw the Wall, and even non-Wall concerts.
Yep.
So I think.
All right.
Just so you know, the ship of Theseus does not have an answer. There are a number of you could look it up, and different schools of thought will give you different answers. But I don't think there's a conclusive thought on this, and I'm not sure. I think it's a nice thought experiment. I know that when I went to see, for me, Roger Waters is the member of Pink Floyd that I value more. So. If Roger Waters is singing his music, it's that. Well, I don't know. Is it Pink Floyd? But like I've seen Roger Waters perform Pigs, or music from Animals. Say, I mean, can you cover your own music? It's still your music. Do you have different musicians playing? Do you know?
Last week I was actually wearing a Beats.
You were
T-shirt.
Yes,
and that is most or a lot of King Crimson.
Well, no, it's only one King Crimson member.
Isn't two King Crimson members?
Am I? Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Fact check.
Yeah.
So.
But that was
Adrian
Belew's music.
It was Adrian Belew's music, but they were, first of all, they didn't promote. Okay. First of all, we should talk about Beat a little bit because we're talking about. Steve Vai, Tony Levin, Corey Hart, I think, the drummer from Tool, Adrian Belew. So Adrian Belew is the only member, I believe, of King Crimson. I don't believe any of the other three actually ever recorded as members of King Crimson. And the
guitar player was hanging out with like Chachi.
So. Can't even.
Crossroads?
No, at this point.
Good movie.
Steve Vai. I don't.
Yeah,
he was not.
In Crossroads?
Right, but I can't. We've got Ralph Macchio. I don't.
Yeah, same tomato. Go on.
So the only original member was Adrian Belew. They didn't market it as King Crimson.
But he's not even an original member of King Crimson.
Well, he is of that iteration of King Crimson. Because there was the '80s iteration, and that's the music that they performed. But to finish my point, he didn't market it as King Crimson. He didn't say, come see King Crimson
Correct.
with a bunch of other people playing the music. He did market it. The name of the band is Beat, and they did market it essentially as an all-star cover band of King Crimson, in which they
doing the music
of King Crimson, for the most part, note for note, recreating the sound of that album.
Yep.
And to me, that's a cover band. In Adrian Belew, had he thought it was King Crimson, he would have called it King Crimson. Now that doesn't answer your question, but you bring up an interesting thing, and I think in the specific case of King Crimson, that's how I view that.
So there's kind of been, I mean, another kind of interesting band to talk about in this state is Genesis.
Right.
Because there's a before Genesis and a now Genesis.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's a no more Genesis. Genesis is currently defunct. But Genesis existed as Genesis, and it went through transition, right? You went through the Peter Gabriel years. You went through the Phil Collins taking over, and they changed personnel in and out. Sure. So, but they all recorded under the name of Genesis. I think first of all, if you record an album under that name, you are legally that band. And so if you want to make it simple, that's Genesis. Phil Collins is Genesis. Peter Gabriel is Genesis.
That's a legal,
right, but I think
Pink Floyd, because he legally has the right
Floyd.
To be Pink Floyd.
I think so. And when I go see,
but it's not the spirit of the band to me, because
right.
It should be Gilmour and Waters.
And at the same time, when I go see Roger Waters, I don't say I'm going to see Pink Floyd. I say I'm going to see Roger Waters, even though he's playing Pink Floyd music. So I think it's an interesting question. I don't know that there's a clear-cut answer.
So, if you went to see Yes right now, there'd be no...
It'd just be...
No John Anderson, right? So he's not...
No, I think John Anderson's still with us. Chris Squire's not with... Chris Squire's not with us.
Anderson.
Really?
And then... a band that's touring right now,
you
can buy tickets for this summer is Linkin Park.
Right, and that's a pretty hot button topic for a number of reasons. It's pretty hard when you take out the lead singer.
Mm-hmm.
Although Journey kind of did it successfully when Steve...
Yeah, but I mean, Journey's a great one too, because they basically found somebody
who sounded exactly like,
who's doing an impersonation, if you will,
right,
of the lead singer,
Steve Perry.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is that
the
band?
Right. So I would not personally. I think this is where my snobbery might come in, and I may be sorry about this later, but I pretty much don't have an urge to see the fake Journey with not either. Steve Perry.
Yeah.
Although I've heard he's great. I've heard him sing, and it's really great, but I've never seen Blink 182 as I recall. And so I don't at some point, if Chester was still around, I'd probably might, because I think Blink 182 is actually a pretty important band that I may have overlooked when they were around. I'm not sure I'd care to see them with the new singer, and it's nothing against the new singer. I don't feel like it's Blink 182 anymore, really. But if they're going to record new material with this new person, then it's Blink 182. I think it's fair enough. I think the band gets to name themselves whatever they want, and that's, I guess, the legal part of it. I mean, if the band still says they're Blink 182 and the album says they're Blink 182, then who am I to tell them they're not?
We're gonna after the show, we'll have to get our producer's opinion on Linkin Park. I believe he was a big Linkin Park fan in his youth.
Yeah.
The last one I will bring up, because they're on tour as well. They'll be at the Rose Bowl on April 18th, and they'll be here in Chicago at Soldier Field on May 24th, is AC/DC.
Right.
How many people have to die before they're no longer AC/DC?
Well, they lost their original singer and replaced him. And
that's probably been 30 years ago.
Right, but
40 years ago?
Sure, but they were still. You could have said that 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Like when the new singer came in, you could have said 30 years ago, same as Blink 182. Well, this isn't Blink 182 anymore, or this isn't AC/DC anymore. And then they went on and recorded several of their greatest albums. So if Blink 182 goes on and records 4 more amazing albums.
Yeah, but one of the somebody else from AC/DC just died too.
Right.
I think it was just the bass player, but it was the brother.
It's been a bad year for bass players, quite honestly.
Yeah. It's just, to me, it's fascinating. So
Right.
when does a band stop being a band and just becomes a legal name? I don't know. I will still argue that the current iteration of Pink Floyd is the greatest Pink Floyd cover band ever, and not Pink Floyd. I will stand. That's a hill I will die on.
I can help with that.
All right. Let's take a break and come back with the album.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the red corner, an album that needs no introduction, an unranked challenger that still carries a heavyweight punch, from London, England, by the band Supertramp. This quadruple platinum album sold over 20 million copies worldwide, unleashing 3 top 20 singles on the music world. It held the #1 position in the Billboard Pop Albums chart for 6 weeks in 1979. A 2-time Grammy Award winner, Breakfast in America. And in the blue corner, 2 fat guys. This is 2 fat guys and an album.
So welcome back to 2 Fat Guys and an Album. This week we are excited to talk about Supertramp and their supreme work, Breakfast in America. This week I pick the album, so we've been alternating back and forth, and we will continue to alternate who picks the album.
I'm pretty sure I've heard a song or two of this in an elevator, but go ahead.
I never said elevator.
Okay.
Go back and listen to this.
All right.
Man. Stop saying that. You're just a
or a shopping mall or store, whatever you said.
I don't know. And this, we're talking about Supertramp, not Blink 182.
Thank you for that.
Just clarifying.
Gotcha.
Right. So this
Blink 182 is a very fine band, by the way. So is Linkin Park.
Right. So we're talking about the 1979 album of Breakfast in America. Before we go into that, we've already kind of touched a little bit on the band, but would you like to talk about the 4 guys who make up, or 5 guys that make up Supertramp?
Well, I mean, we've already talked about Roger, Hodgson, and Rick Davies. They're the main writers, the main singers. Apparently, they don't like each other very much, and there's quite a bit of friction throughout the history of Supertramp, but especially during this album. I'm sure we'll be looking at that a little deeper later on. John Hellwell, the saxophone player, probably why I like this album, because You Had Me at Saxophone, and
is that the only kind of horn in here? I mean, there's a lot.
Well, he actually plays a couple. Well, he plays soprano saxophone, and then he plays. I think there's either an alto or tenor saxophone in there as well. So there's a variety of different saxophones. Like we had talked about the different instruments in the family of saxophone last podcast, and so there's a couple different saxophones in there. There's a harmonica in here.
So, like, Take the Long Way Home?
Yes.
There's a long kind of intro.
Harmonica, isn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a harmonica.
All right. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, if I'm thinking it correctly, and it's not Linkin Park. But the long instrumental intro is the harmonica, if that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Okay. Probably why I like it. So this is I mean, they really didn't do that many albums, right? I mean, so their first kind of blockbuster was Crime of the Century, 74.
Right. That's a bold statement to say they didn't do that many albums. They had 4 really significant albums throughout the 70s. How many albums do you want them to make?
No, but you think of a
So Crime of the
I don't know, you
Century,
think of-
1974, Crisis What Crisis, 75, Even in the Quietest Moments, 77, and then in some people's mind culminating with Breakfast in America.
Yeah.
And then the albums that came after that,
I think there was only one more with.
right, and it was okay, but it
Yeah.
probably doesn't rank with these 4. So I think I'm just standing up for him here a little bit. I think 4 albums is kind of a lot of albums, and all of them of quality.
Sure. So speaking of the number 4,
Mm.
there are 4 like just monster blockbusters, in my opinion, songs
Mhm.
on this album.
Yep.
You know, I kind of like to hear your thoughts on them, but I mean, to me, this album is kind of one of the first albums that I remember all these songs on the radio. I remember all these songs.
These songs were everywhere.
Yeah.
This album in 1979, this
80,
80,
81.
yeah, this album was everywhere.
Yeah.
All and then, like you said, there were multiple hits, and this is on like album rock stations. We're not talking about top 40 because I never really listened to top 40, but we're talking about album rock format for whatever it's worth.
Yeah.
And they dominated album rock in that year.
Yeah. To me, I think the first one that really grabbed me was the Logical Song,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I think, written and sang by Roger Hodgson.
I'm going to take your word on that. I don't have the breakdown on who
Yeah.
wrote which and which sang
Yeah.
what, but yeah, they definitely both contributed individually.
And then,
Kind of in a McCartney-Lennon way, almost.
I
Where
think-
they, I think they intended to give each other dual credit. I don't think but the songs were primarily written by one or the other, and I believe the other, musician perhaps influenced or gave suggestions, but to me it had a little bit of a Lennon McCartney quality to
Yeah.
it.
So, just looking at the track listing here, Logical Song was written by, or is credited to Hodgson's.
Mm-hmm.
Goodbye Stranger, Davies. Breakfast in America is Hodgson, and Take the Long Way Home is Hodgson.
So Hodgson wins.
Yeah, but
He
I
had
mean,
3
if
out
you
of
look
the
at the
4.
whole album listing, it's a pretty much of a split.
Oh no, I
between
think
the
they
two.
bounce
Yeah.
it up. But
Yeah,
out of the
yeah.
4 major hits, 5, yeah. But out of those 4 songs,
Yeah, Chauncey said it's 5-5.
yeah, okay,
Yeah. Right. So.
yeah, all great songs. I agree. They were all everywhere. My interesting one of the reviews I read, just said that Breakfast in America, this is from Rolling Stone, was an improvement over the swatches of meandering Genesis-like esoterica on Supertramp's previous albums, and called it a textbook perfect album of post-Beatles, keyboard-centric English art rock that strikes the shrewdest possible balance between quasi-symphonic classicism and rock and roll.
Art rock, I love it.
Yeah. My only complaint with that is I actually like swatches of meandering Genesis-like esoterica, and I don't find the previous albums to be lacking.
So that would be kind of a shot at the Peter Gabriel era.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't know. I don't know if it's a shot at Peter Gabriel. I think so. This album did not have a massive amount of critical acclaim. I think there's a lot of the fans liked it a lot. I think if there was a Rotten Tomatoes back in the day, it would have been like 100% from the fans and like 5% from the critics.
Right.
You know,
Well,
so this
that's a pretty flattering comment from
Rolling Stone. No. Once it got past, well, I just was annoyed to me that they were taking a shot at their previous albums. Like they hadn't quite attained the level of Genesis. It was Genesis-like. But maybe I'm reading it wrong. Maybe I'm a little defensive on it. But certainly, in the term that comes to mind, the genre that comes to mind, if you will, when this, I think of it as progressive pop. You know, I'm not sure if it's progressive rock in the sense that Yes or Genesis were. It's definitely more poppy, but it's also progressive. It's beyond just your basic pop music.
Well, no, this would be, my take on this album is this is really where they moved away from the progressive rock into pop.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I'll let them keep their progressiveness, but it was more poppy.
So I'm just saying.
You agree. You're trying to say you agree with me.
Yeah, but I'm more like shooting back at Rolling Stone. I'm saying they moved from progressive rock to pop, and Rolling Stone saying they moved, they're quasi symphonic
classicism and rock and roll,
art rock. They use better words.
Yeah, art rock is fair.
It is. English art rock. I
English
love it.
art rock.
Love it. I got to write that down as a new
think
genre in my genre collection.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
So to me, I mean, it's elevated pop music. It's I think it's high quality music. It's not really bubblegum pop or anything like that.
No.
The music, you have
high production.
High production. Received a Grammy for its production, actually, and thoughtful lyrics and all that. It sort of elevates it to something beyond just pop music, just top 40 music.
It was, I believe, nominated for Album of the Year.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was pretty well received, if I'd say.
Yes.
You cannot talk about this album without talking about the cover. The cover art.
It's an iconic cover, I suppose.
It is for a couple reasons. I mean, it's a shot of Manhattan.
Yep.
Kind of an artistic vision of Manhattan there.
Mm-hmm. With the diner waitress as
but
the Statue of Liberty.
Right.
Yeah.
But before we move past that, it is, you can't see the Twin Towers in it.
Yes. They are there.
Yeah. So and then and the diner lady was just recently passed away, I believe, a couple of years ago. Kate Murtaugh, who was a relatively
accomplished
actress,
right,
in her day. Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of funny. You work your whole life as an actress, and you're most famous for doing
an album cover.
We're doing an album cover,
right?
Just even your album, or you're not doing anything on it. So she, to kind of touch my heart, she appeared in the Munsters.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm all about that.
That's a win. She's already
yeah.
An A-list actress, as far as you're concerned.
Absolutely, 100%.
Right.
You're in the. You end up in the Munsters. I'm all good.
Yep.
All right. Very cool. So what's your favorite song?
I think I like "Take the Long Way Home" the best.
Because of the harmonica?
Maybe.
Yeah.
It could be. They're all really, I think this album holds as an album. I think it's still of the album rock era. There's a couple throwaways at the end of it.
Yeah.
And the lyrics are thoughtful, but also not. I like the songs maybe not specifically because of the lyrics, but because of ideas that come to mind. It's not necessarily the entire story of the song, but it's just, there's this great turn of phrase, or I like the music, or I like the harmonica.
It's good beat you can dance to.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
It definitely has a little bit of that quality to it.
To me, and I keep going back to this, and again, this album kind of hit at a time, I would have been 14, 15, something like that.
Right.
And the logical song.
Right, sort of that anti-establishment, anti-school, don't let
Well,
school turn you into a
no,
robot.
yeah, but it was more of the moving away from the innocence of youth into the confusion of adolescence.
Yeah, definitely a loss of innocence.
Yeah.
But the awareness.
So as he was singing about that, I'm going through it.
Right.
So
that personal connection was there, and that's what I would also acknowledge is, my 14-year-old brain loved this album.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't listen to it. I hadn't listened to it for a really long time. Like, it's an album I owned, I purchased. It was one of those. I was one of the, probably the first 10 albums that I ever purchased. So it was definitely something I was interested in the day. And then, it kind of, I'd stopped listening to it. And then the Goo Goo Dolls had covered. The Goo Goo Dolls? Somebody did a cover.
Blink 182?
It could have been Blink 182. No, it's the Goo Goo Dolls did Give a Little Bit, I believe. And then it made me remember Supertramp.
Yeah.
Now, this is, this isn't yesterday or even a week ago. This was a couple months ago maybe that I decided, I'm going to put this album on and see if I still like it. I still like it. It's still
solid,
a really
man.
good album.
It is.
There was a list on it. Q Magazine, which was an old music magazine, they did a list of albums, and this was number 2 on this list. Albums it's okay to like.
That's
Guilty
pleasure albums.
But I think it's better than a guilty pleasure. I do.
I'm not sure that when and you being the maestro can correct me, but I don't think there was anything musically this big, this symphonic that was out there. I mean, maybe Queen.
Well, Queen for sure, but Queen. I'm trying to think what Queen was doing in that.
Well, I
time.
guess like
Queen was
like
doing
Chicago. Would have had the horns and the.
Yeah, but we were crisscrossing decades here, so it's a little difficult. Like if you're talking just at this very time, like Queen, I think was doing Another One Rides the Bus. This is in the middle of the disc. Yeah, I mean this is 1979, so don't forget there was disco was another. You had that competing faction of music going on. So literally, I think Queen, if you probably had their top charting album in this era, would have been something like Another One Rides the Bus. Another one rides the bus. Another one rides the bus.
Why do you keep saying that?
Because it's the only one I can think of.
Another One Bites the Dust.
Oh, that's Big Al Yankovic. Weird Al Yankovic.
Weird. Yeah. You got your C game
just
today.
Need
just another nap.
Yeah, feel free to keep. I think the big ideas are there. I'm struggling with the details today. But Queen was obviously big. Rush, you could consider symphonic.
Rush, sure.
Genesis, of course, yes. But
yes, good one.
But all of these are earlier. They were still like in that prog rock. I think this Prog-Pop is a little different from all of those.
Prog-Pop.
That's
awesome.
Yep.
I love the genre conversation.
Excellent.
Awesome. So where does this rank on you? So it's not a perfect album, right?
I don't think it's a perfect album, just because there's a couple throwaways in there at the end. Child of Vision, the thing about this album is there is sort of a theme that runs through it. You have the two main writers who are at odds with each other. There's a lot of sort of, songs that sound like breakup songs, or there's poor communication or disillusionment with society. And a lot of that was directed at the person that they were working with. And I think they acknowledged that. And so,
did we see them?
We did. Yep. I can tell you where we were sitting. Yeah, we saw him at the former Rosemont Horizon, and we were sitting in the balcony, and we were.
What year?
Oh gosh, Well, it had to be high schoolish because I didn't. It had to be like 82, 83, something like that. Yeah, but we were sitting on the. We were sitting online with the stage. We were looking from the side. We had basically like side of the stage seats, and it was probably one of the. It wasn't the first arena concert that I saw, but it was one of the earliest. Yeah.
So I think in the rafters of the garage here.
Yeah.
I actually have all the ticket stubs still.
Oh yeah, we have to check that out, and
we could pull that down and find some.
So my least favorite song, though, to go back to that, is probably "Child of Vision" because it doesn't have any of the charm or irony of the other songs. It's just sort of acidic. Like the other songs, have, there's a little more subtlety to it. There's some jabs in there, but they're disguised. Mm-hmm. This is just like a little hard to listen to for me.
So where do you put this album on your?
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, if we've done 3 albums, right? It's so this is a really interesting question. Actually, I have 2 questions to pose to you, if I can. I realize I'm just the maestro of music here.
Yeah, no.
But is Supertramp a Hall of Fame band? Because they're not currently in the Hall of Fame.
I don't see how. I mean, they have 2 monster albums in Crime of the Century, and
right, and the others were no slouch. The 2 middle albums still were pretty solid, and there were singles off of that as well.
Yeah,
so like "Give a Little Bit" came off of Even in the Quietest.
I would think this iteration, this group of artists that make up, the musicians that made this album.
Yeah.
Is Hall of Fame.
Yeah, those 4 albums, along with those songs, but in the songs that came off those albums, I think they deserve Hall of Fame consideration. So I agree with that. And then the other thing, like, where do I rank it? So we've done Moondance, as you know, that's number 1 for me. And then so now I have to figure out
number one of the ones.
Number one of the ones we've done. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you have The Clash, London Calling, and then you have Breakfast in America. And I think, and those 2 albums were the same time.
Yep, same year.
And they're completely different.
Correct.
So if I'm saying which
the
one,
genre works that way.
Yeah. So if I'm saying which do I like better, if you ask me which one I've listened to the most and enjoy the most, it's Supertramp.
Yeah.
If you ask me which is a more significant album, it's The Clash.
Yeah, it's yeah, and they both have personal impact for me. Breakfast in America was an impact to me as it was happening.
Yes, me too as well.
And London Calling was probably 5-6 years after it was
right.
actually
You came
out
to it a little
that
later.
I kind of found it, and it meant a lot to me because of what I was going through at that period of time in my life. It was an impactful album. So I would have, I would have a hard time ranking these. I don't. Of the 3 albums we have done, this would be probably number 2. You know.
And I would put this 3.
It's not a bad list to come in.
No, there's 3 good. Yeah, there's 3 good albums, and again, that's kind of the interest.
In your top 50 albums, is this even?
It's
right?
possible. It could be.
Right.
We'll have to get through 50 albums to know for sure.
Yeah.
But it does again. It just brings up to me the conundrum of I personally like this album, but it doesn't carry the same historical weight as London Calling, and so. But I value that also. Like, I realize that, and I do think London Calling needs to be ranked ahead of Supertramp, even if it's not the one that I personally like better.
It is interesting because this is like kind of the first time we're talking about like an immediate impact album of at the time we remember kind of where we were sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And we saw the band while
we
this
saw
was
the
happening.
band when they were together. We saw the full iteration of the band.
Very cool.
at their height.
So is it a great album?
I think it's a great album.
It passes our definition of what a great album is?
I don't think we've gotten that way. So it's not a perfect album.
Well, it's not a perfect.
It's a slightly less perfect album. It's
a
not.
Brek
It's
album.
not an. It's that's not a thing. It's not an album where every song is a favorite. So 4 or 5 of these songs have made it to my favorite list, but not all of them. So it doesn't qualify in that regard. But if an album has, I mean, geez, if it has 3 great songs on it, that's saying a lot.
Yeah, I would say this has 4.
And it does.
Yeah, no, it's you're right. So I don't think as much as I love this album, I don't think it's a great album. I don't think it passes my definition that I said in episode 1 of what a great album was.
Well, right, it's not a perfect album,
But
and
it's a
not
personal. It's a hugely personally significant album to me.
right. I feel like there has to be a category for that in these less than perfect, but not perfect, but still really awesome album.
Yeah, it is. It is. Haven't listened to it in a while. Go and listen to Breakfast in America, and we'll be right back with what we're listening to.
This is Diane Blackburn, realtor with Baird & Warner and proud sponsor of this podcast. I pride myself in being committed to serve as a trusted real estate advisor for all my clients. Whether you're looking to sell, buy, rent, or lease, feel free to reach out and let's chat about how we can work together to make it happen. If you're watching, scan the QR code for my website or give me a call at 630-638-1999. See you on the flip side.
Are you someone who needs help with their Instagram or TikTok? Well, you're in luck. LR Media is here to help. Email me at laurarose2003@aol.com to get started. Let's make your social media shine.
So 2 fat guys at an album. We're going to start talking about what we're listening to, some new music that's out there, and then maybe even tie that into a show that's coming to
The Chicago area, or
the
possibly a theater near you.
The theater near you, yeah. So I think the most significant piece of new music that's coming out is the band Guided by Voices is releasing a new album on February 7th called The Universal Room, and they've released a song from this, which is Dawn Believes. This is this band has been around a long time. 35 years or so. But they're and the new song is very good. Run out, listen to it, download it from your favorite place, again, called Dawn Believes by Guided by Voices. They're a lo-fi band.
Okay, I'm not sure Dawn Believes is lo-fi, but we can go back to B1000, if you like, from 1994 when they are lo-fi.
So I think of the lo-fi tradition. Can we do that? I mean,
they.
So I think
is this going to be the first Mountain Goats mention of the podcast?
I believe it is. So I was going to say, kind of like a lot of the kind of the raw music we like is lo-fi, and the Mountain Goats, phenomenal band, love you.
Yes,
love you, Mountain Goats.
Call me.
Yeah. I think is really kind of set me off on the whole kind of lo-fi. Neutral Milk Hotel, I think, is another lo-fi band. So maybe being the maestro of music, you can talk a little bit about what lo-fi is.
I mean, to me, and again, I don't. If you look this up in a dictionary, I'm just telling you what I feel of lo-fi music. So I know I'm not necessarily giving the dictionary definition of this, but and going to this Guided by Voices. If you go back to their earlier works, B1000 again from 1994, I think is the one that's considered their
Sure.
the quintessential
Their
opus. These are songs that were recorded in a garage with tape players. Maybe they had a 4-track where they were able to, but there's not a lot of production. In fact, there's no production. The
Mountain Goats were that way too. Didn't he record?
He recorded directly to tape. Right. His first album, well, the Mountain Goats are actually John Darnielle.
Right.
Right. It's a so I'll go back and forth between saying he and them, I suppose.
Yep.
But right, he started off and with a guitar and not even a professional tape player, but like a boombox. And the thing that I love is you go back to his earlier works. I'm pretty sure All Hail West Texas is still like this, where you can hear the whirring of the cassette tape as it goes. Yeah. And he was using like a little almost toy keyboard to create some of the beats behind the songs at times. It's very simple.
That's the charm of it.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about a little bit before, where it's highly personal music. You're not cluttered by all the production. It goes back to our Unplugged discussion. Mm-hmm. It's just uncluttered by anything else. So if the artist has something to say, it cuts straight through. Like you hear it. You hear the quality of the songwriting, the intensity of the singing, and so it sounds a little rough around the edges because it's not finished in a lot of ways. And in fact, I heard they digitized All Hail West Texas, recently, and I don't like it. I want to go back and listen to the original version. It doesn't need to be cleaned up. It's perfect as it is. So I'm in this lo-fi thing, but it's basically it's just music that doesn't have a lot of production to it. It basically has no production. Some of the things you think about musically, there's a word called balance, okay? And so if you go see a live band, you've got a guy working a soundboard, and you can hear, and they're constantly adjusting this. So how, do the vocals project? How loud are the drums? How loud is the guitars? And throughout the entire show, they're actually adjusting the loudness of all these instruments to make it sound good to the audience. Mm-hmm. They don't do that really in lo-fi. It's kind of just a band. It's like if you had a garage band with no sound man, and you put a tape player out and you recorded it, and not a very good tape player, by the way, not just so that's what you get. And so it's a very raw, stripped down sound.
Last week we were talking about mono.
Yes.
And is that what we're talking about here?
It could be.
So
if you're recording into, so you could have back in the day, 30 years ago, whatever, and the Mountain Goats could be recording on a boombox, for lack of a better word, and those actually came with stereo condenser microphone. So it was one little, microphone of very low quality. I mean, it wasn't a high quality microphone. It wasn't like talking into a microphone.
Or even your phone.
Or even not even that. It was just, and probably he was 10 feet away from it when he was playing, so it doesn't have what you would call presence. It'd be like if I was talking like this, I sound like I'm far away from the microphone, compared to if I'm like this, where it's going to sound clearer and fuller. So it has those sort of qualities to it, but you could still be stereo. You could have a 2-track microphone, so it's not necessarily that. Okay. But mono does sound overall simpler than stereo, but that's not necessarily what you're hearing. If you have a 4-track machine, basically it just gives you the ability to record 4 things at once. And then you would have, if you did want to mix it later on, you could adjust all those sounds separately. So if you had a microphone on a guitar, and you had a microphone on a voice, and you had a microphone, on the bass player, and then you go back and remix that. You would have control later of all of those sounds. Whereas if you just set one microphone in front of a band, that's the sound you get. You can't go back and well, I can't say you can't. Technology's gotten a lot better, but
You couldn't in 1994.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, so this is just a bunch of friends getting together in their garage, probably having a couple beers and recording their songs.
So what'd you think of now that we've gone down a lo-fi rabbit hole?
Can I hit you with one more lo-fi thought?
Yeah, sure.
Do you, since you're into it, okay? Well, are you familiar with the complete recordings of Robert Johnson?
Well, yeah. I don't know if I know the complete recording.
Well, it's the title of an album.
Right,
I'm not trying to hit you with like, could you name the 37th song that Robert Johnson ever recorded?
Okay, so yes.
So Robert Johnson, for those who might not know, is the progenitor of rock of blues guitar, of everything that exists today. But again, his music goes back to maybe
the OG.
The OG, the true OG.
The OG.
Yeah, there's literally nobody before him that we know of. Now, so we're going back to, say, the 20s. And just remember, this relates to having the ability to even record. Because prior to, say, I don't know, 1915, there wasn't a lot of music recorded. So when we talk about somebody like this, it doesn't mean nobody was doing it before him, but he's one of the first that we have recordings of.
Gotcha.
And his music influenced literally everybody.
Yeah.
So I've listened to this blues music. It's got amazing historical performance, but because of the recording technology, I think it's fair to say it's lo-fi. And I'm just curious if that, you react to it the same way or not.
No, so I get where you're going. I get what you're poking at there.
Yeah.
And I don't think so. I think I think when you talk about lo-fi bands now, you're just talking about it's his own little genre, and it's a kind of a stripped down piece of mind. It's not a technology conversation.
Right. And this is where I depart from your just ideas of genres and what lo-fi means. Because you think of it as you just said, when in fact lo-fi exists because it existed.
Yeah. No,
you know what I mean? It's
I get it.
So why isn't Robert Johnson lo-fi?
He may have been the technically lo-fi.
Right, which is the same, but you could say the same about Guided by Voices. They were limited by the technology available to them. The Mountain Goats were limited by the technology available to him. Now for me, the Mountain Goats managed to make fantastic music, but he wasn't doing it.
They created a sound.
They created a sound, but it wasn't on purpose. It's because that's what he had. I think if he had the money to go into a studio, he would have. He was just recording tapes and selling them in the local record store at the time.
Yeah, all right.
So, and this goes to all genre and all things that we name. The music exists first, and then we apply a name to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I don't have to go down that rabbit hole completely, but give it. I just want to throw that idea out there.
It's good. It's good.
As far as the exact Guided by Voices album, again, I'm not anti lo-fi, but this album to me sounds unfinished. It sounds like a bunch of guys in a garage. So if you like the songs and you like the sound of them, that's great. If you told me, and this band has been sort of described as, I think, inspired by The Who, would be the inspiration of it.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I've come across. Yeah. It's sort of like if The Who were this.
From Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, right.
The Who came out
so
of Dayton, Ohio.
if these recordings came out, and these were the hidden recordings of Roger Daltrey and The Who, say they're their demo tapes, and they're low, that we're going to go in and we're going to record these, and then we're going to present them to our producers or whatever, and we're going to figure out how to turn them into real songs. That's sort of how I feel about it. I feel like these are unfinished ideas, unfinished demo tapes. It would be brilliant if it was The Who, because you would see the genesis of their music and the creative process and all that. So I'm just going to say in this particular, and then the new song, Dawn Believes, because you said something interesting a while back, and you said that it was, I told you it wasn't lo-fi, because it's not. This is a produced song. This is not lo-fi. But does it come from a lo-fi lineage? Yes. It does. Obviously, it does. But to call it, I'm not saying it's incorrect, because that's one way that we can categorize music. Like, you can say this comes from a lo-fi lineage, and therefore it's lo-fi. But if you listen to it, it's not lo-fi.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I got to go back and give that a listen. I guess stay tuned.
Yes.
I will rebut it some future show.
Fair.
So as I was kind of digging around and, having gotten all excited again about lo-fi music because of this, it got me over to a band called Car Seat Headrest, who I am just like so hyped about right now.
Can I just throw out there for everybody, there's so much great music out there that you don't know about, and we hope to find, and that's one of the things that we do hope to do in this podcast.
Yeah, and this has got to be one of them. So there's a 2023 live album recorded in New York City by the Car Seat Headrest, Faces from the Masquerade. I've been listening to this album like on repeat for a week. It is the voices are amazing, the songwriting's amazing. I think this is the epitome of that kind of lo-fi vibe. And if you listen to their actual studio albums, I think you get some of that. But what a great album. And if you want to pick a song to start with, again from the Faces of the Masquerade album, 2023, recorded live in New York City, I would say listen to Beach Life in Death from this album.
It's an incredible song. I will say I have not listened to the entire live album as you have, because I've only listened to this song on repeat for a week. It's an incredible song. The live version actually I take it back. The studio version I prefer to the live version, actually. So it's one of the rare times for me that the studio version is actually better than the live version, because I just think it's paced better, and there's reasons. You can go out, be the judge of yourself. You cannot go wrong listening to this song. It is epic in every way. It's emotional. It moved me deeply.
Where were they my whole life? What?
That's what I'm saying. There's just so many. Really, there's so much out there, and it's so much fun to discover something like this. And it's a profound song, a deeply moving, profound song.
Yeah, big fans.
Yeah.
So I am also happy to point out that they are coming to the Salt Shed here in Chicago.
Oh, have you checked their set list? Will they be doing Beach Life in Death?
I don't know. July 26th, they'll be here. Can we go?
I hope so.
I'm like all in. I'm anxious to kind of explore more of them, but I'm currently just completely like engrossed by this album.
Yeah, once I stop listening to Beach Life and Death, I will move on to the rest of the album.
Yeah, it is really good. So that's our recommendation here for the week is go run out and listen to Faces from the Masquerade by Car Seat Headrest. And if you haven't heard that band, man, give a listen.
Yep.
Big fans here. We need like an acronym, like
BFH,
2HG.
All right, we'll work on this in a meeting.
AAA.
triple
Yeah.
AAA
AAA.
rated. We still have to refine our
2FG,
ratings, our rating
2FG,
system.
3A?
On Spotify, you're 2FGA.
2FGA.
That's what you are on Spotify.
That's
So-
how all the do we have two? Is it like too legit to quit?
2F?
Can we be two?
Yeah.
Do you
What
even,
is it?
Chauncey? Do you even
Cha-
get that reference?
Chauncey, what is it?
Too legit to quit. Well, yeah. Too.
Too legit to
All right, we'll
All right.
move on.
Workshopping it. Still.
Well, yeah.
But car seat headrest, you're listening out there. Huge fans right
Yep.
here, sitting in the chairs. All right, let's do Act 3, our hidden gem.
Hidden gems, or well, okay. I have to pull up a sheet. Do we have a break? Can we break?
This episode of Two Fat Guys in an Album is brought to you by Smidge Films. If you're looking to bring your ideas to life with some cool cinematic work, Smidge Films has you covered. From brand stories to promos, we'll help you tell your story in a way that really sticks. Check us out and see what we can do for you.
So Act 3 is where we discuss a hidden gem, something from the past that might have been overlooked or not gotten enough attention for our liking, and or at least was hidden to us.
Yes.
That we would like to share. And so this week, it's Brek's turn to pick a hidden gem. So Maestro.
Yes. I have my album pick is "Love What You Do." The 20th anniversary of this album, first released in 2005 by a group called the Hackensaw Boys. Hackensaw, that's like, so first of all, it's like an Americana-ish band, like maybe a string band, bluegrassy. I kind of think of them as a punk grass band, like it's bluegrass with an edge. Punk grass. Well, you threw out what was
Psychobilly.
Yeah, so you could call this, you
Punk
could
grass.
even go like psych grass here if you like.
We're writing down pike grass. Everybody look that up. See if
Yeah.
that's something.
It's a thing. It's
a Brekism.
it's not. So,
All right.
but it hopefully it gives you the idea. It's a little bluegrass Americana with the edge.
So Americana tends to be
rootsy.
the kind of jam band. You know?
I think jam band evolves from it. Not every Americana band is a jam band, but some bands, like Billy Strings, for example. We saw Billy Strings when we first saw him. He wasn't extending his music. He was just singing songs in a particular style, an Americana style. But then you could see songs in a similar style, say Railroad Earth.
Yeah.
They're playing the same music, but they're just extending those out for instrumental solos, for extended.
Right.
Right. So that's when we talk about jam bands, I think that's what we're talking about. There's a lot of improvisation involved.
So would they do that live?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, are you talking about the Hackensaw
Yeah,
Boys?
the Hackensaw
No. So the Hackensaw Boys, not a jam band.
Okay.
Hackensaw Boys playing that Americana style of music, but not necessarily stretching.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, they're just
go ahead.
playing, yeah.
Yep.
And saw them at Space, actually, and they were fantastic live, fantastic. So hack just refers to playing the mandolin. You hack the mandolin, and you saw the violin. They're
Yeah.
the Hackensaw Boys.
Nice.
That's the origin of that title. Another interesting thing about this band is they have an instrument called a charismo. And a charismo, well, not many people do. The only people that actually would know the name of this instrument would be fans of the Hackensaw Boys, because the charismo was invented by a member of the Hackensaw Boys. And this goes back, their style of music can be porch music or jug band music. A lot of people would call that skiffle back in the day in the 20s and 30s. Where you're playing with improvised instruments, literally jug band, washboards.
Right, jug band, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And the charismo is basically a bunch of cans, like coffee cans, if you can imagine this, sort of worn as a belt around his waist. If you've ever seen like a marching band and you see the drummers with like 4 drums in front of them or 5 drums, except they're tin cans. And then he might have again a washboard or something, and so you're just creating all these sounds. And if you think about it, the origins of this music, porch band music or string band, you would have fiddles, you would have banjos, you have mandolins, but what would you do for percussion? People wouldn't have like whole drum sets or anything like that. So then you have people playing the spoons, or playing or tapping or using a washboard, or using a tin can, and that's really what
just keeping time.
Gotcha. And that's what you get with the Hackensaw boys. They actually were super cool live. They say we bring the porch to you. If we bring the and so they even unplugged completely. It was a very small venue to begin with. It's essentially an acoustics. They don't play electric guitars, but they play electric acoustics and with microphones and things like that.
So there's another band, I guess you'd call them Americana, that we've liked and seen quite a few times.
Yeah.
That also has sort of a bizarre percussion sort of person.
Are you going with Bella Fleck?
No, I was going with Pertner Sandstone.
Oh, because they have a dancer, a clogger.
A clogger,
yes, right. So, yeah, right. You literally have somebody sort of tap dancing or really clogging.
Yeah.
And they're the percussionist of the band. Right.
Which is...
well, again, you're going back to this tradition of 20s, 10s, 20s, 30s, perhaps Appalachian folk music. Yeah. I'm not sure if clogging is Appalachian specifically, but, these are just sitting on the porch making music. And so when I saw them live, they unplugged everything and did completely acoustic, no microphone, no amplification whatsoever.
You're saying they were at Space?
They were at Space.
Space in Evanston,
yeah, it's about 200 seats maybe.
Right.
And their encore was completely acoustic, unamplified in any way. And it was really awesome.
Oh, very cool.
The album is Love What You Do. It has a bunch of great songs on it. The old Steve Martin bit was you can sing anything and make anything sound happy on a banjo.
Right.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that, except these songs aren't happy at all. There's a lot of quiet, introspective songs. There's a lot of sad music. I think the first song on the album is one of my favorite. It's called Son's Work Undone. It seems to be about a child perhaps leaving home under bad circumstances, like a failed parental relationship. Kind of makes me think of, when you have a child and they're young and innocent, and then they turn into teenagers, and and then you go through that phase of parenting. And the lyric, but it's optimistic because it references silver linings. But the idea of Son's Work Undone, the idea is that the sun is cheerful and happy, and then the rains come. And the rains they did come left the sun's work undone, like the rain ruined the sun. But then it says the flowers are happy for the waiting. And it's touching. I am touched. I am touched.
You sound touched.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Nice.
So there's a number of songs on there that have that are profound. And then they have another great song called Kiss You Down There, which I thought was more of a double entendre, but it turns out it's really just a single entendre. I think they missed an opportunity with that to be a double, but it's still a really great song. Alabama Shamrock is very poetic and evocative. So I don't. Did you get a chance to listen to this album?
No. I listened to not the whole album.
Yeah.
I listened to a couple songs. I like the I do like and I guess I was expecting them to be jam bandy and
right. No, not jam bandy at all.
Concert.
No. They're singing their songs.
That these were just tighter renditions. Like.
Right, I know what you mean.
Railroad Earth kind of goes off and does all the
right.
Yeah.
No, these are no. If I misled you on that,
no, you didn't.
I
read into it.
I see. Yeah, no, I think again, just to clarify, like you can have Americana music, and just sing a 3-minute song, and it have a banjo and a mandolin, and it's a particular style of music, but in all genres, then you can stretch that out. Mm-hmm. And then let the musicians, do their thing.
Yeah.
But for
and
but
you had me at mandolin.
yeah,
you
but
know.
right. But for a collection of songs, I highly recommend. And this is not. I found this band by accident. A friend of mine was supposed to actually open for them, and that's how I ended up at the show. And I had no expectations, and they blew me away.
Yeah. Well, that's not the only time that has happened to us.
Right.
We have been, we have stumbled across. We've liked the opening acts better than the.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often, but it's actually kind of nice when it does.
Dumpster Funk comes to mind.
Dumpster Funk rules the universe.
Yeah, if you
And-
ever stumble upon
And
them.
if you are currently a band, never have them open for you.
right, they will crush you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still don't like the band that followed them, and I think it's mostly because
They got
they
destroyed.
got crushed by the opening act.
Yeah.
Very cool. I will dig into them a little bit more. And like I said, you had me at mandolin.
Mhm.
So
I think you'll like the album.
very cool. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of this episode. Again, a few
I have an album picked for next week if you want to hear it.
we'll get there.
Oh, okay. You read my script.
Yeah. All right. On behalf of us, I'd like to thank our director and producer from Smidge Films, our PR team from LR Media, our sponsor, Diane Blackburn, with your home group from Baird & Warner. And we can be found now on Instagram. You can be listening to this podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or YouTube. So next week, it's your turn to pick an album.
Yes, and that was just a little bit of foreshadowing there. A little tease
Yeah.
for coming out of the ad.
Assuming it's going to be Blink-182.
It's not. It's not. A very good band, though. Perhaps we'll address them in the future. You
Yeah.
went on quite the MTV rant.
I did.
I think for
irritates
2
me.
episodes now.
Correct.
And so in honor of this obsession with MTV, I feel like we should do Dire Straits' Brothers in Arms next week.
Fantastic choice. I love that choice, and it gives me another opportunity to pick on MTV. I am available if you need a program director.
Yeah.
Although it would require us to bring back Martha Quinn. I am Fat Guy number 1.
Fat Guy 2.
And on behalf of both of us, thank you. We'll see you next week. And we will discuss our personal feelings about it and its impact on us. With me, as always, is the Maestro. I just screwed this whole thing up. Can we do this whole thing over again?